All right, this is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast. I am your host, PWI senior writer Al Castle. We got a packed house today for what I think is going to be a really important conversation. I've been driving my wife and kids crazy the last couple of days, kind of having this podcast conversation, sort of rehearsing the podcast at the dinner table. I've got so much to say this week, so uh, uh, keep that in mind. I'll go around. My partner, Brian Solomon. How's it going, buddy?
It's going okay. Happy to be here. I've been recording my audiobook all day, so if my voice is a little weak tonight, I'm glad you have a lot to say, Al, because I might have to just let you
Okay,
you know what I mean?
great. Back again, PWI contributing writer Jason McVeigh from the other part of the world. A lot more wrestling going on in your part of the world than ours these days.
There's a lot. Thank you for having me. If my voice sounds a little weak tonight, it's because it's after midnight here. So
yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, but yeah, Forbidden Door in your parts of the world, and we just had Raw right over. Where in Europe? Where they don't even know, and that's right. And then we've got Clash in Paris this Sunday. I know Paris right around the corner from your home. Yeah, I think of Europe as just this tiny little place. And Jason just hops in his car and gets to Paris in 30 minutes. Joining us this week, somebody I reconnected with recently, NWA World Television Champion Bryan Idol. How's it going?
Very good. Messy hair and all. I just got out of the car, man. I've been running around all day. A lot of traffic out here in Clearwater, Florida, down on the beach here, Clearwater Beach.
Yeah, I was. You were just in our parts on Long Island for the NWA 77th show. Invited me to come down. Got to see you retain that title on your shoulder. Terrific show. That people will see over a few weeks on Roku TV, right?
Yeah, eventually at some point. We're on a long delay. One of the things I would love to see change would be the amount of delay that the NWA programming has between the live events and the Roku. But, that's the way it is. And, it's a work in progress. So, but other than the long delay, as you said, the show, very good. Quality of what we're doing, I love. So, very happy with that. And as you saw, Paramount was packed. And
first time I've been to that building lots of times for concerts and stuff, and never thought of it as a venue for wrestling. And I know this was kind of your brainchild, but it looked great in there.
It looked insane, right? It was really cool, man.
And Steven Spielberg agrees, right?
We're not supposed to know. I don't care. I'm not even affiliated with it, so I can say it. But there was, Spielberg filmed some movie. There's a wrestling thing going on in a Steven Spielberg movie, apparently. And that's, it was one of the local guys, my buddy Lenny, Donnie Dixon, was the one who showed me the building and was like, I knew the building, but he showed me the setup and was like, he was like, hey, man, get over here. And so, took a look at it and was like, this is totally legit. It was just unbelievable. So, what a find. And to be in my, home area of Long Island, I couldn't pick a cooler venue. Like I probably never want to wrestle in another venue in Long Island ever.
Yeah, it was really nice. But you have wrestled in a lot of venues and for a lot of independent promotions around the country, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on for what I think is going to be a really important discussion about the state of wrestling and the state of independent wrestling, given a story that kind of came out of nowhere over the last few days. And this was the story of Raja Jackson, Rampage Jackson's kid, seriously injuring another wrestler. He's not a wrestler, for KnokX Pro Wrestling in California. It's become just a huge story. And I think it's one of those stories that really kind of holds up a mirror to wrestling. And I think brings to light a lot of real problems that need to be addressed. And it's one of the reasons I want to have this conversation is like, I sort of feel like this was a reckoning that we got to figure some things out and we got to fix things. And we're going to do it. We're going to fix everything on this podcast. Just give us a few minutes and we'll have it all sorted out. But real quick, I want to tell you about the latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Mine came in the mail a few days ago. We've got Willow Nightingale on the cover, another fellow Long Island friend.
Absolute sweetheart.
Yeah, she's from my part. She's a Valley streamer. Just coincidentally, this issue is loaded up with news on independent wrestling throughout the country. Jason, you put something together about one of the biggest names in independent wrestling. I know when we were still doing the PWI poll years ago, that was one of the questions, like who's the next big breakout star of independent wrestling? And one name I'd see come up a lot was Manders, and you wrote about him. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it was something I was looking forward to doing for quite a while. I'm a big fan of Americana and the whole cowboy thing and the West. And bizarrely, Manders and that character has translated massively in Europe. He's had huge success throughout the UK, Germany, and stuff. So we caught up with him and pretty much to tell the story of this American cowboy in Europe.
Yeah, and there's so much more. Sorry if I'm a little distracted. In this issue, we've got features on the actor Paul Walter Hauser, who's also gotten a lot of exposure on the independent scene. A story about who is the indie god, a competition between Shotzi Blackheart and Matt Cardona for that title. Brian, you might have something to say about that.
I'm going to go with Cardona.
All right. Another Long Island
hustles like Matt Cardona, except for I might be a close second, but I mean, he's a master.
Yes, more Long Island representation and a lot more. So check it out. Head over to PWI-online.com. Get this one issue. Subscribe. We are very much in PWI 500 mode. Brian, you're always way ahead of me on Brian Solomon. We're going to have some confusion this week.
Are you done? Me Solomon.
Yeah.
No. Am I done? No, actually, I haven't been up to my usual levels of productivity this year. I got 20 out of my 50 done so far because I was in Las Vegas for Cauliflower Alley Club. Yeah. So I lost like a week. And now I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. It will be done in time. Just tell Kevin everything's okay. It's on the way, but it's just not going to be early.
I think we have a little time. Yeah. And I was also away for a few days, and that kind of slowed my progress, but I'm getting there. I've got 30, and including the top 10, which are a little longer. And I think I've got 8 of the top 10 done. So getting there.
Can I interject and say,
no, we won't tell you where you are.
I've never been ranked in the PWI top 500. I just want to put that out there. Somehow, right. Amazingly, I've never been ranked.
I'll put in a good word. Anyhow, head on over to PWI-online.com and check it out. All right. Again, I'm even more than usual. I've been sort of chomping on at the bit to have this conversation. So let me begin. I'll try not to take up too much of the conversation, but what my big takeaways is that you sort of like, this is one of the reasons I want to have Bryan on, because Idol, that is, because you could speak to this more than any of us, I'm sure. You begin with the premise that pro wrestling is one of the most dangerous jobs you can have, right? I mean, even though the most important part of a wrestler's job is protecting someone, right? I mean, they give you their body and you've got to protect them. There's no way to make it completely safe, right? So you begin with that premise, and you do everything you can to sort of like mitigate the risks to try to ensure the safety of yourself and your opponent as much as possible. But it is an inherently dangerous business. And so I think it's really incumbent on everybody in the business to do their best to minimize that risk. And what I've seen more and more and more, I think to a troubling degree in recent months and years, is just relaxing standards. And we've had some discussion about this as far as like the death of kayfabe, and some of that is just kind of innocuous stuff about exposing the business. But I think the bigger picture of, and I heard Stevie Richards talking about this, sort of like moving away from the whole notion of protecting the business, is that we've gotten way too cavalier about what's allowed. And in all promotions, I mean, you saw this on the kind of the biggest level with Travis Scott busting Cody's eardrum. But you saw the YouTuber, and there were lots of YouTubers, I Show Speed, getting speared out of his shoes by Braun Breaker. And this is all to say, I think it's time to sort of close ranks. And there are, if you are not a trained pro wrestler, you have no business being in a pro wrestling ring. And I know so much of the focus of the news of the last few weeks is just been sort of like simplified to, this guy's a thug, he should be put in jail for attempted murder or something like that. And I think that's part of the story. And I do think that this guy needs to face justice for what he did, which was just horrifying. But I really do look at the situation, as through the eyes of somebody kind of tangentially involved in the wrestling business, and I get a lot angrier at the people at KnokX Pro Wrestling for just the most irresponsible kind of situation that I've ever seen, where you just have somebody show up. You've got somebody, it's one thing I thought. We witnessed 2 assaults, that night. The first one being Rampage Jackson being hit in the face with a beer can, not even expecting it. And again, I think a few things break differently. And Rampage Jackson is almost a sympathetic figure in this situation, because why are you hitting this guy? You don't even know who he is, why he's there. And then once that happened, even after that, it seemed to be kind of like sorted out and squashed, and there were apologies made. That could have been diffused right there, but no, they invite him to let's work an angle out of this, and this guy clearly isn't smartened up at all. He doesn't understand how this works. And then you've got another buffoon telling him to go get a receipt and all this stuff. It was just irresponsible act on top of irresponsible act on top of irresponsible act. The one I didn't know until I think just earlier or today, that after Syko Stu is unconscious, looks almost dead in the ring with having broken bones in his face and choking on his own blood and teeth, they sent another wrestler in there to get the pin, to cover him and get the 3 count, so just absolutely atrocious. Bryan Idol, I'll go to you. You're the one who's got some experience here in the ring. What's your take on what you saw there? And, what does it say about kind of the state of not just independent wrestling, but wrestling? Do you agree that some of these standards have just gotten too lax?
Okay. I think there's a lot to unpack here, and not that I need to qualify myself any further, but this being my 26th year in pro wrestling, and the fact that I've run a wrestling school and promotion for almost 20 years, the problem starts there from the promotion in the school on down, and the culture of what's going on there. And to your original statement is, I think it's hard to close the doors of pro wrestling to outside entertainers, whether it's MMA or musicians or whatever.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but I don't think you should. I mean, I think there's a right way to do it. I think
sure.
You've seen it with Logan Paul. I'd say you even saw it with Jelly Roll, who spent months training.
Right.
And again, you're not going to eliminate risk, but mitigate.
Mitigate it, yes.
Yeah.
And again, well, that speaks to the professionalism and of the people that are picking those people, the way they're vetting them, the way they're handling them, the way the people that are involved in the skits are handling them. And it doesn't always go right, because we've heard stories, like you said, Mayweather breaking Big Show's nose, whatever. And I mean, these are just things that come to mind quick. There's always going to be some risk of the unexpected, and to, we don't have to get into all that, but I'm saying, like, what I see in this thing is a systemic problem that is existed since the beginning of wrestling, and it's this bully culture that when dudes are veterans and they want respect or they want whatever, there's always like, we're going to do what we do, we're going to treat you the way we treat you, and you're going to stand in line for that, and whatever that is, whether it's humiliating or it's a good thing, you're going to accept it either way. And I'm saying, I personally can speak to that, where I started wrestling at 16 years old, and boy, was I bullied. And it didn't stop even when I got older. It wasn't until many, many, many years into this thing where I was able to establish a foothold and earn the level of like, hey, that guy's all right, leave him alone, because I was an easier target than most, because I wasn't always so big and muscular, and I had to work my way up from 180 pounds. So I think you can't accuse Syko Stu outright of saying like, hey, you're the instigator of the whole thing, or you're the bully here, even though in the moment when he hits the guy with the beer can, well, he's clearly kind of bullying him. I mean, what do you hear? You don't know who I am? Boom, he hits him with a beer can. Like, to me, that's like, it's pretty rough.
Doesn't it begin with like the very basic level of communication, like maybe to have a 10-second conversation,
right? And you could hear whether they were working it. Like, we don't know what was worked into the entertainment aspect, whether they were filming it for that reason or whatever. All we know is what we can see, and I'm just saying it's irresponsibly set up, and it's whether it's him in general or the other guy instigating after by throwing gasoline on the fire, saying give him a receipt. Yeah. That's a bully culture kind of thing in wrestling. And I just think the wrong guy, man, they got his card pulled because you have this kid who grew up around an MMA legend, who's the son of him and sits in MMA gyms. And even in his own defense, how many times do you see MMA fighters pounding on a guy's face and they don't stop until the ref gets in between them and the guy ain't moving? They're taught to do that. So not saying that that's why he did it. Obviously, he was angry, over the top, and out of line. But I'm saying you can see how he might be desensitized to that. Not to mention, the kid doesn't seem like he's all there. Right. So I'm saying now you've involved this person who's a little off, and also something that I discovered through a little bit of research on it was he was live streaming on some app the whole time, and there was people watching it. So imagine all this is like a kid, he's in his 20s, and everybody's sitting there saying like, you're a punk. I can't believe you let this guy do this to you. Oh my God. So you can imagine in the moment, that's gasoline on the fire. Then you got the guy there who's like, brother, get in the ring and give him a receipt. Yeah. Give him a receipt. And then here comes everybody else with you don't know what a receipt is tit for tat. Listen, that's very hard for even a wrestler to understand where the line is on a receipt. Trust me on that. So, I've been in a thing where I've accidentally hit somebody too hard, and I've never tried to like shoot on anybody in the ring or be that guy. And I think I'm known for being, I can name a guy, you said you were at Cauliflower Alley, Brian. A wrestler came up to me at Cauliflower Alley. His name is Matthias, I think. I wrestled him in like California somewhere. And he said to me, out of every longtime veteran I've ever wrestled, he was like, you were by far the best and the friendliest. And like, he's like, I felt like you listened to everything. You tried to help me. You tried to work with me, and you didn't have to. And I really appreciated that. 3 days later, after Cauliflower Alley, I wrestled in Texas. And the kid said to me after the match, thank you so much. You didn't have to. You could have just came out there. You're the NWA champion. You could have just came out there and walked all over me. And he's like, you didn't do that. And I appreciate that. And I'm not trying to sit here and put myself over. I'm just trying to say it's never been my mindset to be that guy. So I'm saying like, it's easy to see that when you have a kid who's not in the business, who might be a little off, who unfortunately for those guys is like a pit bull because of where he grew up and who he came from. And you have this culture of like, well, brother, that's the way it is. He hit you with the beer can. He said he was sorry. It's wrestling. You're not one of us. You got to just kind of like roll with it. You can't expect a normal, like if somebody did that on the street, you know what I'm saying? Like, and somebody says, why didn't he hit him right there? Well, if you watch the video, there was a guy sitting in a chair between them, and there was people already stepping in and pulling him back and whatever. So I can see how the kid felt like he got punked. And I could see if I can imagine being 25 years old again and having 1,000 people online, calling me a wimp and saying I'm a chump and this and that.
Including your dad. I mean, one of the videos that got out was a conversation where Rampage calls him and he says, oh, I'm seeing something out there that you were punked by some guys in tights. What's that about? And he felt emasculated. And it's no defense, right? I mean,
no, at all. Exactly. But the thing anyone needs to realize, and like I said, some people are, can assess a whole situation and see it from all sides. And then there's the people online that can only just see this, one thing. It's important to understand every one of those people in that situation is in the wrong. Every single one of them. If you want to sit there and divvy up the pie and say who's at fault, well, you can argue that all day. And ultimately, I'm sure someone is going to do that.
But this is another one of my big takes, and you'll agree. There's a big pie of blame, and there's a lot of slices. But at the end of the day, I think this is one of the issues, and it is the lack of a firm hand at the top and somebody responsible to say, Raja, go home. right?
Well,
like
that's the organization, right?
And not thinking like, well, let's work an angle out of this. Where is the grown up in the room? And
that's
and we've talked about this and not to divert too much here, but we've talked about this in the context of AEW and some criticisms about Tony Khan, and this goes back to some of the CM Punk stuff years ago with Jungle Boy and the broken glass, and the idea that, and I have some thoughts on this related even to some of the stuff that we saw at Forbidden Door, which I think would be a bigger story were it not for this. But KnokX Pro Wrestling was not the only pro wrestling company doing incredibly irresponsible, dangerous stuff over the weekend that's got no place in wrestling. But
ironically, they were named a WWE ID school by Gabe Sapolsky. So
not anymore.
I don't know. Yeah, not anymore. But I mean, big shock.
And that's part of the story too. Is when the lawsuits start dropping, I don't doubt WWE is going to be named in some of them.
A lawyer's going to definitely do that.
Yeah, that's where the money is, right? I mean, anyhow, let's go. Ryan Solomon, that is, I don't know. Yeah, that one. You've been ingesting this too. I mean, what's kind of your? Am I overreacting in thinking that this episode is bigger than what happened there, and I think kind of gets to sort of an existential problem in wrestling?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're overreacting, and I mean, I feel like I'm turning into Jim Cornette as I get older. But the thing is, like, and I'm, I guess I'm somewhat affiliated with his shows too, because my podcast is on his network, so I can be his proxy here. But one of the things that I think he gets really right, and actually a lot of older generation wrestling minds get right, is that the big picture problem here, and I'm not just talking about wrestlers. In fact, the wrestlers are not, it's not really the biggest part of the problem, is that there used to be a much greater kind of barrier to entry to the wrestling business. There used to be a lot more of a hurdle that you had to get over. It was a closed society, and then there's good and bad with that. And what I mean by that is not even just for wrestlers. Obviously, it used to be insanely difficult to get into the business. They didn't even have schools, or you had to know somebody. You had to be sponsored somehow. But I'm even talking about the people who were in charge, because I agree with you, Al, that is the biggest part of the problem. I mean, the promoters, the people that are allowed to even run and even be a part of it. It's now so much easier. I mean, and I'm not talking about, there's a problem at the top too. We see it, like you said, there have been some things that we've seen in even major companies and name companies.
You mean on like the independent level and on the ground level you're talking?
Yeah, I'm talking about on the lowest level, really, up and up. It's like, look, no offense, because I know and love people in that world, but we live in a time where you can literally just get some of your friends together and hang out on the weekends and pretend to be wrestlers and wrestling promoters.
Go to Walmart and get some Under Armour.
Right. And you can do that. Hey, I'm a wrestling promoter. Wow.
And that's always happened, to some extent. I think the problem is that it, some of the behavior that you always saw in the mud shows, you're now seeing kind of validated or with. I think you brought something up that is really important, that this school or this company had an affiliation with WWE, and this isn't just like the local, high school show, mud show anymore. You're seeing really irresponsible behavior on a much higher level.
Well, WWE now is in this mode with the WWE ID thing where they're kind of getting their hands dirty, because they're like reaching out into the indie world to try to dominate it. I mean, we've talked about that, Al, and like what the motivations are behind that and what some of the ulterior motives might be and things like that. But that is the downside. You are getting your hands dirty.
You're subject to that kind of behavior.
Right. You are touching parts of the business that in the past they never had anything to do with.
I wonder if they reconsidered the whole WWE ID program.
Yeah. When I was working, sorry,
you go. No, I'm just saying, much like last time they had to reconsider it got so bad with the writing they had to change the colors of the NXT brand. So
yeah,
some common denominators there.
You don't want to adopt some of this, and I heard Mark Henry talk about some of this, and I really think it's true, and I want to be careful about some of this, but even that visual that started this whole thing of a bunch of like shirtless kind of sloppy dudes that hanging out backstage just chugging beer. What is this? And I know that it always happened, but insane that WWE would have anything to do with a place like this. And one thing you touched on, Bryan Idol, that it is one of the reasons this became such a huge story is the younger generations need to stream everything, right? So the whole crime is caught on tape here, and including like the confession, and even before the confession, saying I'm going to go out and do this, and they're going to have to pull me off of him because I'm not going to be pulling my punches. And I think that there's an aspect of that in what the problem is too. Now that there is this other level of motivation for wrestlers and wrestling promoters beyond selling tickets or getting TV viewers, which is social media and becoming viral. And a couple of things I saw that just came to mind. On the highest level, you've got the stuff that like Logan Paul does and blows up, and some of it's really cool. But then I saw at the pre-show for Forbidden Door over the weekend, Michael Oku, a terrific wrestler, right? But do the most insane, dangerous, irresponsible spot. It was like a backflip out of the ring. Nobody was there to catch him. He almost broke his damn neck. And I don't doubt that the idea is like, man, when this gets out on TikTok, it's going to be huge. Everybody's going to be talking about it. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Jason, I think you're the youngest one here. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are the whole situation is a mess and everyone looks bad in it. Yes, there's a problem with this, and it's into what you were talking about, that there are very professionally run independent organizations, and independent wrestling is very, very important to the wrestling business. We're currently working on the PWI 500. The 500 names in that list do not all work for WWE and AEW. There are a lot of independent wrestlers on there who are doing really well for themselves in working in really professional places. And I've seen a lot of really professional independent companies. The problem is as you talked about, when you get into the places that do not have those kind of environments and maybe don't have a Bryan Idol on a show who can step in and say, hey, look, this isn't how this is meant to go. This is a bad idea. Let's not do this. Instead of that, there's a bunch of guys egging each other on to do this. Oh, yeah, do that. That'll be crazy, or that'll be cool, or, well, this will be all over Twitter. We'll see this and stuff. And then the whole thing explodes from there. It's important, I think, to kind of weed out those kind of companies, but at the same time, protect the importance of independent wrestling. Like, our magazine has made a conscious effort to feature more independent wrestling in the past few years and are doing a good job of it. There is a lot of quality out there, but situations like this tarnish the whole scene.
Yeah. Bryan Idol, it is. Could you talk about sort of like that generational difference? As you said, you've been doing this at 26 years old. I imagine 26 years ago, you were doing some stuff that you look back now and say, wow, that was really stupid. If I had to do over again, I wouldn't have done that. Do you deal with, when working with younger wrestlers, are you dealing with people that you've got to kind of talk down from some bad ideas?
Yeah, I want to say, Jason, you made an excellent point about the need for independent wrestling. And I don't want to jump too far ahead. And yes, Al, I will answer your question. But I will say, I think an important thing, and I think, just say it as quick as I can, I think that's where athletic commissions, as much as they're hated by wrestlers, I think that's where they're important. Yes. And I think that's why you look at like the state of New York, and a lot of the BS is cut down before it ever starts, because that athletic commission is strict and it costs money. You got to have EMTs, you got to have this. And I've had a promoter's license for, like I said, almost 20 years there. And I've never been one of these people speaking out against the commission. And for that reason of what you said, it eliminates a lot of BS people. And that alone, when you get rid of that lower tier, that alone creates a better environment for as a whole. And I agree with you about the importance. And I was an indie wrestler for my whole life. So believe me, I'm right there with you. Now, back to what you're saying, you know, the younger dudes, you want to make a name for yourself. You want to stand out in some way. And I'm all for that. And I just try, like, you know, as a trainer and, you know, as a wrestler on the shows and as the national promoter of the NWA or somebody might come to, I try my best to say, like, look, nobody's telling you not to do something, but you have to do it like in a way that you're not putting yourself at the most possible. You have to mitigate that risk. You know, you can't be at a level 10 danger. It can't be like, I'm just going to cross my fingers, dude, and whatever happens. And now this coming from me, who did an insane dive and broke my collarbone in 4 pieces back in December. And if you look at how ill-fated that was, maybe it was not my best decision. But so I understand the need to pull off some cool stuff. And sometimes you see it in your head and it's going to go different. But I think less of a spot type deal and more a behavioral type deal, because when Jason was talking, the one thing I was thinking that separates a lot of feds that go from these outrageous bad things that we're talking about to like, well, you know, there's some crazy stuff, but it's not that bad somehow. It's almost like the word love is involved, because the people that are there that genuinely love that they're there and they love the business, they're genuinely looking out for each other enough in a way where they're not having this animosity. They're not having these types of beefs on the way out to the ring, because that alone sets a chain of events that you see what can happen. So I'm saying, when people aren't like that and everybody like loves that they're there, they're enjoying the moment, they're kind of all in it, it's their thing, it tends to eliminate that kind of stuff anyway. So I just think it's like when it's a bad environment full of bitter people, and I'm telling you, I can watch that video and I can see the bitterness in the KnokX Pro situation. I can see it. And that's, like I said, that's a systemic problem that comes from a lot of, there's 50 million reasons I could give you just guessing. And I'm sure if we talk to people there, they would give you a million reasons as to why it's like that. But the whole point is, when you're in a situation that's already has a bad vibe, bad things are way more likely to happen. So all you can do, you know, when you said like somebody like me or whatever, all I can do on my end is minimize the bad vibes. If I see 2 people beefing with each other, I don't try to instigate it. I try to settle it, or I try to, at the very least, if you're like, there ain't no talking to those 2 people, then you keep them far away from each other and you don't let other people fuel the fire. And like when someone goes to run their mouth, they're like, hey man, just shut up and stay out of it. Like, and there's been plenty of those. And so that's how you got to handle that stuff. And you know, people are always going to do crazy stunts, and you can't blame them. You know, you look at a guy like Joey Janela, man. He made a lot of money jumping off. Well, I'm just saying, listen, you're preaching to the choir. I know him very well, and you know, I don't think he's the greatest wrestler in the world. Like, but let's just say he jumped off that stupid thing, and you know, Tony Khan couldn't write a check any faster. You know what I'm saying?
But that's what I mean. And not to dump on Tony Khan too much, but I do think that he's sort of like in some ways, the embodiment of what I'm talking about in terms of like, where is the grown up in the room? And that's some of the stuff that drives me crazy. You know, there was a video that came out a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was a Juggalo Championship Wrestling match where they did a fire spot and they set somebody on fire, and nobody had a fire extinguisher, and the guy he's on fire. He's just rolling around the ring on fire for I don't know, 20 seconds maybe. And again, it's like, where is the grown up? Where is like the adult, the accountability? And I just don't see it in a lot of places. I mean, I think what happened in KnokX Pro is sort of the ultimate manifestation of that, and almost resulted in somebody dying. But everything is now, you know, popping, you know, I know, you know, I'm sounding like a boomer here.
Your point is valid. And but the other thing is, just a lot more of it's getting caught on tape these days.
Right. That's part of the
problem. I can take you to many nights and weird shows, like somewhere in Brooklyn, I don't know, 12 years ago, where a man named Hard Rock Ken Sweeney got hit with a chair so bad it looked like he severed an artery in his neck. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to die right here. And, you know, nobody ever saw that because there was 2 people at the show. But these things happen. I mean, it all goes back to, like you said, someone at the top needs to say, hey, we at least need to take these precautions. But then the other problem is a lot of guys are like, hey, we're pros, man. We got it. I've done it 1,000 times. And they really haven't. And then
that's the thing. I mean, I think that's what touches to on what Solomon was saying is sort of like everybody can the barrier for entry, as you touched on, is so low now that you pay a fee to school, and now I'm a pro wrestler, right? And I've got some say, I've got some agency in some decisions that are in and that's what I saw, in that backstage scene with the cowboy dude telling him about getting receipt. To me, it felt a lot like a lot of just cosplay are pro wrestlers,
Right, but again, I'm sure that guy's been wrestling for a lot of years, and I'm sure he's wrestled a lot of names. And if you looked him up on paper, not that you'd say he's the best wrestler, people are like, I don't know, seems legit. So that's the danger. Is like that's the thing with wrestling. It's not it's never been the most savory business. Like, come on, that's why Dark Side of the Ring exists. You know what I mean? Like, we can sit here all day and talk about heroes and the crazy things that they've done. So it's just unfortunate, man. And again, but if you really think about it, that's why the athletic commissions need to exist, because who's going to stop you from lighting yourself on fire? The athletic commission. Who's going to stop you from saying we're going to take a chainsaw and come after? They're like, I don't think the commission's going to allow it. So at the end of the day, as annoying as it is, and as much as it kind of hurts the little guy as far as indie feds, you see the need for it. And another thing that I'm big on, and I think is under-enforced in a lot of states, blood work. You know what I mean? Blood work. People get busted open. I've had guys, and not that he ever had anything, but I don't feel shy about saying it. But, one time Balls Mahoney's head splattered all over me, and it went in my eyes, and my life flashed before my eyes. It was like a petri dish of viruses and illnesses. And I was definitely worried for a little bit, even though he didn't have anything. He's a great guy. Yeah. But it's just, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I would have felt a lot more comfortable if the doctor was over there like, well, we got his blood work here from a few weeks ago and it's pretty solid. So I really think that's under-enforced, as annoying as it is, as much as I hate, going to get blood work to go wrestle in New Mexico or places that have that. I think it's okay. I think it's necessary. And
you can't be too careful. I mean, I think that's sort of like the big theme here is that it's shortcut on top of shortcut on top of shortcut. And at some point, you're compromised so much that where are the standards? I mean, I think that's kind of
wrestling.
Yeah. Solomon, something we talk about a lot, and Bryan just touched on it. Is this idea, and that's why I want to be mindful of, like, if this is too much like pearl clutching, right? Is that this is a rough sport, and the history here is rough, and people get into fights. And I do think, again, there's a world where all that happens here is two guys fight backstage, and none of this makes light, and nobody really cares, right? So does there need to be some allowance for some of this, even in the ring, some live rounds being thrown is to be expected. And I wonder what happens if this guy doesn't get knocked out. It would have just, I don't think anybody would even be talking about it today.
Well, but I think this is fair to criticize. I don't think this just falls under the category of, like, crazy things happen in wrestling sometimes and it's not ballet. Like, I understand, like, Bryan, you were talking before about the MMA instinct where they jump on top of each other and they just wail away. And it's actually one of the reasons I don't like to watch MMA, because, I was raised in a boxing family, and it seems so weird to me that you knock a guy down and then you jump on top of him and start pushing him. Brutality. I will never get over that. But, this kid is also old enough and should be smart enough to know he's not in an MMA cage, okay? He's in a different scenario where you don't do that. And I think that's what puts it over the top, that very feasibly that situation could have been much, much more serious than it was. It could have been like serious brain damage, death, anything like that. And it was just luck that, it certainly wasn't any restraint on his part. So I think it's totally fair to criticize it. It is in no way pearl clutching. And I want to say too, Bryan, I've said it before on here, the whole athletic commission thing. It's kind of funny because, when the whole thing happened years ago at WWE and when they beat the athletic commissions and they got around it, back in the day, it's ever since then, it's been like sort of in vogue to just dump on the athletic commissions and they're worthless and they just are out for money. And, you know, some of that's true. There's been corruption. There's been kickbacks and things like that. And people with their hands out and hire my nephew to be the ring announcer and that kind of stuff. Right. Yes. But they do a lot of good, at least ideally. And the thing that people have to remember about them is you know, who's the ones that have the most to lose and are the most critical of the commissions? The promoters, because they get in the way of letting them run things the way they want to run it. The commissions are mostly to benefit the wrestlers, the athletes themselves. And so when you hear wrestlers that are against the athletic commission, it's almost like it's like Stockholm syndrome. You're absorbing the criticism that your bosses have of it and not realizing, like, this is supposed to help you. This actually will help you. So, you know, it does have a purpose, I think. And it's a shame that there's places where it's just the wild, wild west like this.
But I think that's one of the themes here is, and again, I think going back again to why this, I do think that one of the biggest parts of the story is the need for competent management is, I think if you let wrestlers have their way, we just saw it in the main event of the pay-per-view on Sunday night. Another thing I kind of have a problem with, or Saturday night, Forbidden Door, was building a whole pay-per-view on the idea that Will Ospreay needs neck surgery, has a very damaged neck, but he's going to go in the ring anyway because he doesn't care, man. You can't. If I die in the ring, I don't care. You can't stop me. Now, again, I don't know how much of it is legit or how much of it isn't. It sounds like he does have neck issues and is going to have surgery. But the point here is you can't leave it always to the wrestlers, because they will, you know, if you let them, somebody needs to look out for them, right? They will probably sacrifice more than they need to, and that's why you need athletic commissions and you need competent people in management.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. The real ones will die in there, bro.
Yeah.
You know, but again, Brian, excellent points. And excellent points about the wrestlers complaining. And it's always the little loopholes. Like, I remember, I just speak about New York because I know a lot about it, because I'm in the scene. I remember one time there was this big uprising because the commission didn't allow an intergender match to happen. And every wrestler was online the next day writing, a thesis on it. The thing is, though, is I've been around those commissioners enough to know that there's also some gray areas, and when their own discretion gets involved. And so, like, what a lot of people just write off is, like, maybe they heard and saw some things and they were like, all right, no, that's a no-go. Kind of like, it's the same as, like, if you were trying to convince your mom and dad to take you for ice cream, and, there's the one brother who's like, can we go get ice cream, as he's like punching and pulling the other brother's hair, and the parents are like, no, absolutely not. Then there's the other brother who's like, hey, check it out, I got an A on my homework, can I get some ice cream? And they're like, yeah, let's go get some ice cream. So you have to kind of go about it the right way. And again, it's the same thing I said, though. It's the overall vibe. So if you give the vibe of responsibility or, like, well-being, then there's very little you can't do in pro wrestling. But it's when things are built out of the negative, you should expect bad things to happen, and you should expect things to not be done, because there's always room to negotiate. That's just about anything in life, even with the government, even with the laws. That's what lawyers are for. That's why, that's why we have courts. That's how it works. There's always room to interpret. So I think you make the most excellent point, though. And I think the most bizarre thing that you brought up even further on this subject is how wrestlers are so against it, which is insane, because really it should just be the promoters that are complaining. And again, I use for instance of New York. Boom. Since that boxing guy got that brain damage, they made it so EMTs have to be at the show and an ambulance, right? So now you're paying EMT, you're paying an ambulance. It's a lot more money, trust me. To get an ambulance by the hour for 3 hours is a lot, especially if sometimes you get lucky, you can find a cheap one, but otherwise they're pretty expensive. Also, if the ambulance leaves your show, the show stops until an ambulance comes back. So you can imagine how that can ruin a show, right? Wow. So, that being said, it sounds like a big inconvenience until, I don't know, you're the guy in the ring and you need an ambulance and you're like, thank God there's an ambulance here. Because I can tell you, I've wrestled in many places, and in other countries and in the United States, even in some very, very strange areas where I'm like, oh my God, let's just say I really got hurt right now. I'm like, I'm getting wheeled out the back door into an alley and no one's going to act like they know me and I'm going to be left for dead there. And that would be that. And they'd be like, I don't know what happened to him. He was fine. He walked out back. He died. You know what I'm saying? And that sounds insane, but that's what real life is. Nobody wants to be responsible for that kind of stuff. And promoters are always going to want to protect their business. And you're subject to that. So thank God there's EMTs. I've also seen, like I said, EMTs legit save people's lives on the scene, like where they were definitely not going to live. And I'm like, if there was no EMT there, that guy was a goner. I've seen it probably 2-3 times in my career where, thank God, and I don't even think some of the stories ever got out, and I'm not going to expose them, but I know one time pretty recently, the guy was a goner if there was no EMTs there. And they saved him on the spot. And I was shocked at the technology. I was like, wow, you guys got all this right here? And they were like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, my God, how lucky is this dude? But
and I think we almost saw a death, potentially on this show. And
I did have to laugh. I don't want to cut you off, but I did have to chuckle when they go out there and pin him. And it's God. Bro, can you stop? Like, okay. And again, I would understand, even as dumb as it sounds, as maybe whatever, if it was WrestleMania. And it was
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
You're like, all right, dude, we just did what we knew what to do. We pinned him. You're in front of 25 people in a sweaty warehouse. You don't need to pin the guy.
Not only that, but like that's the line in the sand where you decide you have to protect the business. Like after all that you have allowed to happen, that's where you say, "Oh, we got to protect the business."
That's where it just feels like cosplay pro wrestling people,
insane.
Right?
Get out there and pin him. You're going to ruin the finish.
Because they've read over the years so much that the most important thing is that
go to the finish. Meanwhile, even WWE doesn't do that anymore. I mean,
they'll exit out at this point.
Right. Just stop it like it's a movie,
But like maybe the guy, I'm saying if he was awake, maybe he would be like, "Hey man, just pin me." Like I've been in there with guys who are like, "Hey, just please get to a finish," and I'm like, "Okay," and something's wrong. But that's that was insane. I mean, I can't do anything except kind of chuckle when I see it because I'm just like, oh my God, like what are you doing? And that just speaks to the level of insanity that's going on in that place. And I've never wrestled for KnokX Pro. I know a lot of the people there.
Do you know any of the, I was going to ask you, do you know any of the players involved there?
Yeah, I know Journey and Juicy, and they're good guys. And it's unfortunate. It sucks that they got to take the black eye for this because I think their lifetime. I mean, Rikishi runs it, dude. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are lifelong professionals.
That's crazy. Another kind of crazy wrinkle of the story is that the guy who owns the place is a member of like the sort of like most celebrated family in wrestling. I mean, like he's got a direct relationship to some of the biggest names in the sport. On the other channel, Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, the Rock, right? I mean, but it should have no more professional standards.
But it goes to show you right there. That's why outsider regulation is key. And again,
we should point out, he by all accounts, he wasn't even in town. He had nothing to do.
He's just running a show. I mean, I've been there. I've done that. I've run shows and not even been there. I mean, it happens. It's just you expect business to carry on as usual. Everybody there is desensitized essentially to any of that stuff because you're around it so much. Even if you're a jabroni, you're still like, all right, I do this all the time. I've been to a million shows. I know how this goes. Everybody knows. So it's just one of those things. There's always something bound to happen. This one was just way over the line. And it was, like I said, bad luck, a bad day, a bad guy to pull your card if you're Syko Stu, because Rampage Jackson's kid clearly was a dangerous individual. So it's like, dude, you get just bad luck.
On that point, and I want to go to Jason. We have, but one last question for you, Bryan, because this does require kind of your perspective. And this is a thought I had, but I'm reluctant. I mean, not being a wrestler, reluctant to say too much about it. But one thing that jumped out at me was Stu gets knocked out, I think, right away, right with that bump.
On the double legs.
He's out before the first a punch. And my first thought was, shouldn't he be able to take that bump? I mean, but I get that it wasn't a bump, more than your average spine buster or whatever you'd call it. But I mean, can you talk about if you saw it, what the mechanics are of what happened there, and does a different wrestler, Cody Rhodes, whoever, does he get knocked out in that bump, or is it just impossible to say?
You are setting me up to be the biggest heel of all time. This is like just teeing it up to get me canceled. No, the reality is, as Bryan pointed out, it was an unpredictable. I don't think he thought he was going up that high. I think he knew something was coming because the way you can see how he gets up and he turns away and then turns back, which is something you're not supposed to do as a good trained wrestler. You know, there's another way to feed into that, but we're not going to get into the technicality. But I am also going to say perhaps that he doesn't know that aspect of it, and then he takes the bump. He did not take a good bump and did not prepare to protect himself in any way. His head was never tucked the entire time when he was floating around up there. And I actually went back and I watched for that because I wanted to see, like you wanted to see, if he got knocked out when he hit his head. He definitely did, because he did not tuck his head. And another thing I would say, having had guys shoot on me and dump me on my head a million times, shout out to the first guy that ever did it, Papa Don. We're cool. I love him. Don't worry. But so the other thing you can do in an emergency situation to protect your head like that, when you're like, wow, I'm way up in the air and I don't know when I'm coming down, is you can kind of take your arm like this. And so you're not really sacrificing your arm. You're kind of just giving something a little extra so that the back of your head won't hit first. So it's like your handle hit into your head, which is a lot softer than the wrestling mat. Even though some people seem to think that those are made out of clouds and fluffy pillows, they're not. So he could have maybe done something like that, or even two-handed it, but he did nothing, and he just was like a dead fish, and he hit the ground and whacked his head, and that was a wrap. So I don't know if another wrestler, it wouldn't have happened to him. It could have happened to me. It could have happened to anybody. However, there is more that I saw that he could have done in the moment. And perhaps, like I said, the way he turned away from the move and came back just to even set it up speaks to the fact that he might not be the greatest wrestler in the world.
And I think that's part of the story. And this is where I think you can get in a little trouble talking about it. But and also as well, Nathan, let's get the guy in a different country in trouble. But my thought is, again, I understand the sympathy for this guy, and I have it too. And I think I certainly hope he recovers, and that should be the paramount concern here. That
I heard, we did see, right? You saw today, TMZ said he's awake and all that.
But I mean, it's going to be a long road and all that. But you Jason, I'll go to you again. You begin the first thing that, or maybe not the very first thing, and maybe the first thing is inviting this guy to begin with. But really, like that domino that sets all this up is Syko Stu going up to this guy who he hasn't had any communication with and hitting him in the face with a beer, assuming that like he gets it and all that. And I just saw that and I thought, like, what an incredibly irresponsible thing to do, and also an assault. And he's a veteran, and I appreciate that, and he's been at it for a long time. So again, nothing. You certainly wish nothing but the best for the guy. But again, in the pie of blame, I think you look at the fact that this guy just walks up to someone and hits him with a beer can. Insane. And I'm like, where is the professionalism here?
And it's not just anybody he's hitting with a beer can. Like, I mean, like to have
son of Rampage Jackson. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
but I think that was the point. I think that was the reason.
Because he was a celebrity. I mean,
yeah, that's it. It's like, oh my God, like I'm going to make a name for myself because I'm going to do this to Rampage Jackson's son. And what do you see what happens?
Whoops.
And as Bryan Idol already said, this is what happens. Things like this then get wildly out of control, and a guy is going to turn around and do this to you. So I think it's just there are large portions of professional wrestling that need to be more professional. Mm-hmm. And I think this situation has shown that.
Yeah. In my day job working at a newspaper, I mean, I sort of thought about, there's a few times like in my career where there's been some kind of ethical scandal or plagiarism scandal, not necessarily in our organization, but another organization. And you see everybody sort of activate and the emails go out going forward. Here are some things that we need to do, and just kind of like tightening up standards. And I sort of hope that's what comes out of this, right? Not just minimizing it to, this is something that happened in a 2-bit, indie fed on the West Coast. I think there are lessons that everybody can learn. And I think there are a lot of bad habits that are just rampant throughout all the way to WWE, that I hope some of this addresses, on that point. And that, I think we'll stay in this conversation. But again, I'm sorry. I think like AEW in particular, and I think in part because they're newer and they WWE has obviously a bigger budget, a bigger infrastructure, bigger resources, lawyers, concerned about liability. And I do think the standards are different there. And even there, we've seen some, I think, pretty irresponsible things. But at AEW, time and again, I just see things that I'm like, who is allowing this to happen? That show on Sunday went off the air with Jon Moxley digging his a fork into somebody's to Darby Allin's ear and then like licking the blood. Disgusting. I'm sorry, that's not wrestling. And Brian Solomon and I often talk about where is that line, and if it works, it works, and it not everybody's cup of tea. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. That sucks. That sucks. And I wish there was somebody there to say, you're not doing this. And if you do it again, you're fined or suspended because this sucks. And Moxley in some ways is the worst purveyor of this for a guy on that level who has been at the height of this business, but just loves the garbage. And I see it all the time. And it's not to pick on them so much, but they've also, syringes in the mouth, cinder blocks dropped on people, and not just like the stunt bumps with props, but just wrestling bumps. Like I mentioned before with Oku, just wrestling bumps that are, I think, and again, I'm not a worker, so I can't say, but from a spectator, look a lot more dangerous than your typical wrestling bump. There's that brainbuster spot that Ospreay does on the turnbuckle, which, oh my God, every time I see it, I'm horrified. I'm like, how is this allowed? So if there's something good that could come out of this, I hope it's that. There's a lot of changes, and I will single out AEW and say they need to get their act together and just prioritize wrestler safety better than I see them doing.
Well, Brian, here go your chances to ever work for AEW. So we apologize.
Dude, I'm already, I'm already out of both these companies. Thank God, I got the NWA. Listen, love Billy Corgan. Love the National Wrestling Alliance. It's my whole life. If I never work anywhere else again, hey, so be it. I'm super happy. I would love to work here for the rest of my entire life, honestly. But it is true, though. I've already shoveled enough dirt on myself. But I probably did in advance anyway. I agree with you. I think it speaks to, if you ask me why Moxley does this, I think that's his fan base that he's most in touch with. So he's like, this works for me. I'm selling the most stuff. I'm living my best life appealing to this, right? So now it goes to administration and the marketing of AEW. And, I feel like I can speak on this, being the national promoter of the National Wrestling Alliance. I think one thing you need to determine when you're a wrestling company is who is your audience? Who are you marketing to, okay? And who are you capable of marketing to? Well, in AEW's case, they are capable to marketing to the entire world because they have a seemingly infinite supply of money.
They're on HBO Max. I mean, that's as big a platform as you can get.
Yeah, the biggest platforms. You got all this money. So I think you have to think, okay, how do we reach the most people per square inch, right? So obviously that includes children. And I would say it's a large part. My thought process in general, and I'm not afraid to say it out loud, maybe it's not the coolest, whatever. I picture myself, anytime I picture myself in wrestling, if you're asking me who I'm wrestling for, well, number one in my brain, if you're like, why are you wrestling in front of people? Well, I want to get chicks. If you are like, and it's happened a couple times. If you're like, who are you wrestling for? I'm wrestling for, 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds. I don't know. That's who it matters to, because I think about when I watched wrestling and when it mattered to me. You know what I mean? Like, it was the biggest thing in my entire life when I was that age. Like, nothing else mattered. And so I see the magic of that, and I know the value of that, of what it's worth. And it's no offense to the older dudes that come up to me and they're like, yo, was crazy when you did that dive and whatever. Like, wow. And I love it. And you're right. And I am, that sometimes I feel like I'm like, yeah, I did this, for the older people. It's going to register with them as like, hey, I'm cool to watch too. But deep down, I think pro wrestling should be marketed predominantly towards younger audiences, kids especially, your larger than life superheroes. And then it's the connection with the kids to the parents to the wrestlers. That's how the chain goes. And if you can, and WWE has absolutely mastered that. And if you can do that, you see what they're capable of doing. And I think that's the mistake, that it's like, I don't know the expression, but you're selling yourself short. Basically, they're like cutting a corner to get the quick buzz going. Like, hey, let's get these people here, the violent people, the shock and awe. Let's get them all. But there's not enough of them.
It's such a small audience.
Right.
Yeah,
that's the key. There's not enough of those people. Right?
You're putting yourself in a niche audience where,
and that's fine for a game changer wrestling, right? Or a
works for them exactly.
Or a jungle championship wrestling.
To scale. Because to scale,
exactly.
they're capable of reaching X thousand number of fans, right? So to scale, that's what happens. And that's why, by the way, not like I'm going to sit here, I might as well, because I got nowhere else to go now. But the NWA, why I pat Billy on the back, and I think he's way smarter than anybody gives him credit for, because quietly we've got this Roku deal. We might have something else up our sleeve, but Roku's huge anyway. And it's the legit Roku. It's not the Roku back channel, come see us NWA ... 3412. It's, channel 210, Roku Sports Channel. And we're there every Tuesday, and they replay it on Saturday, and we're 24/7 on demand. And we have the Wrestling Central channel, which is 208. So, we got a lot going there, and it's a huge numbers of, I've seen it. I've seen the numbers. Their numbers are huge exponentially. And I'm saying, if you understand how we got there, it's because Billy Corgan said, okay, I'm catering to a global audience. I'm not worried about what the, Smart Mark Wrestling fan or the niche fans think about what we're doing. I have a bigger vision. And again, I think it was more connected to like what I said. He watched it when he was a kid. He understands the magic in that. That's what we're going for. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but all of a sudden you find yourself on a big platform, and now it's like you got the right bait to catch the right fish. Where, like I said, I think AEW really cuts a corner and kind of sells himself short with that. And they're more than, I think there's so many talented people on that roster. And I think I've met Tony Khan. I don't think he's an idiot. I met the father, Shad Khan. I've met Shad Khan. I think he's wonderful. There was a brief second where maybe I thought I was going to be in AEW. And I was excited about it. So
that was about an hour ago.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was excited about it. Those dreams have since died. But anyway, I think organizationally, there's nothing wrong. I just think it's the direction they go in. And then I could knock some of the, I could say things all day. Like I disagree when I'm driving down in Tampa on the highway there. Oh my God, I don't know my own routes. Whatever the highway is. When you're driving on that, there's a sign, a big billboard, digital billboard, and every now and then it'll flash, watch AEW Dynamite. And I'm like, I say to myself, what is the value of that? Like, those got to be happening in every major city, and that costs money. And I'm like, but how are you going to draw somebody off that billboard? Like, who? You understand what I'm saying? It's like there's just no direction in the marketing there, and I don't understand it because there's so many great people that work there.
And I think that the problem is that sometimes when you hear like the AEW loyalists, hear an argument like this, they sort of act like it's a binary choice where, well, it's either what we're doing over here or it's WWE corporate wrestling. And what I'm saying is like, no, AEW can be AEW. And I really appreciate that they have a different style. I'm saying there's just, you've got to have some standards in line.
Yeah, it's over the top.
And AEW can still look basically how it looks today with some, I think, tightening up of things, and not to praise, what I think almost, not even that it was even like the best match of the year, but what I think is sort of like nails how you do what we're talking about is Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes, the ladder match from the Royal Rumble, which was dangerous. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's two guys wrestling with the ladder match, but it made sense that it was a ladder match. I mean, it was the third PLE match, so it was like the blow-off match to a super intense feud that lasted for months. There was blood, there was dangerous spots, but you got a sense that it was kind of a controlled danger, that everything was planned out. I don't know if it was that match or something else, but watching WWE Unreal, there was something where guys were fighting through the crowd and somebody shoves a fan, and Triple H backstage freaks out and tells the ref to communicate to them, you can't put your hands on the fan. And I think it's Michael Hayes tells him, don't worry about it. It's a plant. So, I mean, to me, like, yes, that's how you do it. Even something that seems like that much of a throwaway of shoving a fan, even that is planned for. And I'm not saying remove all improvisation from wrestling, because you need to be able to improv. But when you're talking about where a fraction of an inch could be the difference between life and death, yes, I mean, you can't involve a cinder block in it and just sort of hope it goes for the best. You know, hope the cinder block doesn't kill him, or like I'm up for getting some nails in my back. Maybe what's the worst that could happen? Jason, we haven't heard from you a bit from you, but I some of it is like this is naturally a contradiction. How do you do something safely that is inherently not safe? And I'll also point out, WWE has done this really badly in the past. I remember like the Saturday Morning Slam era, where they were trying to have matches, but like, can we have matches with no violence? And like, there are all these things that you couldn't do, or the worst match I've ever seen ever, Seth Rollins and The Fiend in Hell in a Cell, where they tried to do a really violent match without any violence, so I don't know.
Which is why I think there is a place for gore and hardcore stuff in wrestling. I think it's very important that the WWE is different to AEW, which is different to TNA, which is different to the NWA. I want that in wrestling. I want the companies to all come across differently. And I like the fact that there's gore and violence in AEW, and I would like that to continue, but there's a way to do it. And even one of the things you mentioned, Al, was like the likes of a Will Ospreay doing a brainbuster on someone in the corner, and it looks great and okay, it looks dangerous, but it's maybe very highly trained, experienced guys doing it. Yeah, the problem is someone on the indie scene is seeing that and thinking, that looks cool as shit. Let's do that. And he has an opponent who says, yeah, I'll take that, no problem. And someone breaks their neck.
Right.
This is where it gets dangerous. So this is why there has to be things in place and experienced people who know, yeah, okay, we can do this with a relatively sure chance of this won't go wrong. Or someone who says, no, this is too risky, we can't do this.
Yeah. Anyhow, we could go on.
Can I just say
anything about anybody else?
Point.
Good. I'm sorry. Good.
Look, all that stuff's been done anyway. The Attitude Era, I mean, they did it all. They pulled guns on people in the Attitude Era. There's a place for it. But even then, if you go back and you watch all of it, some of it was a little off taste. And it's like, so what they did was they realized that, they learned from it, they dialed it back, they kind of perfected it, they moved it into the next era, was that ruthless aggression or whatever. And some may like it less, some may make it more, but I think WWE learns from the history of whatever. And that's the part that always baffles me, is like, it's all there. And I know for a fact, Tony Khan's aware of WWE history. And so they all watch it, they all know. So it's like, learn from the example, and not because you got to be unoriginal, but like they kind of did the hard work for you. They showed you what tastes good and what tastes bad and how to. It's all there, man. You gotta keep your eyes open. That's all.
One last second. I'll go around sort of like panel style. What is one thing coming out of this episode that you hope the wrestling business learns a lesson from? And I'll go with Solomon first.
Wow, thanks.
Give you the least time to think about it.
Well, that's assuming a lot that the entire wrestling industry could learn anything all together as one unit, which seems so
change that
dubious over time. I think it goes back to what I said at the beginning. What I would like to see is a little more. I hate to say this without sounding like the term gatekeeper today is such a negative term. I think sometimes you need gatekeepers, and I'll be the one to say that. I think it should be a little tougher to put on a wrestling show than it is. and maybe that's something that we could learn, that there maybe if there is here like a greater awareness from people who can do something about it, that there's a lot of shady nonsense happening on the indie scene that it needs to be kept an eye on somehow in whatever way that could be done. Just an awareness.
Yeah. Jason, anything?
Just a little bit more professionalism in professional wrestling, I think, especially in those independent shows. I think it's important to have experienced people who have a strong voice there, who can say, yes, let's do this. No, let's not do this. And let's look out for the safety of everybody involved.
Yeah. Bryan, any thoughts?
What I would hope everyone would learn is the more negative and bad that we make wrestling look on the independent level or on any level as a whole means the less people that are going to watch it and or care about it, and the less anybody's going to want to spend money on it, meaning you won't be able to do it. So that should be everyone's motivation when you're a wrestler, is like, how do I get the most people to watch this and like it and enjoy it and come back? So when things like this happen, it is beyond a black eye on wrestling. Now we're a 6 o'clock news issue, and that sucks.
Yeah. And I think what I'd say, and I don't even know that I knew what I was going to say until just now, but a need to everything that you're all saying is absolutely true. But again, in my day job, I write about trains and buses a lot, right? And they have all kinds of goals in terms of like, you got to get the train there on time. That's a goal. And we got to collect fares to pay the workers. That's a goal. But if you ask the people in control, well, what is your number one above all that? They'll tell you very quickly, safety, right? And because none of the other stuff matters if somebody gets hurt or gets killed. And I think maybe that's my big takeaway from this is that promoters, wrestlers, everybody involved needs to kind of be reminded of that above every priority, getting people over, selling tickets, selling pay-per-views, getting eyeballs on your TV, all of it, safety. Make sure your wrestlers are safe. Make sure the people in the audience are safe. If you're going to have some kind of guest who is not as trained, don't do it if he's not trained. But just above all things, prioritize safety. I think that should be the single most important thing. And maybe that's where if there's one theme that cuts across everything that we saw on that show, it was a cavalier attitude towards safety for everyone. The referees, the wrestlers, the promoters. It's sort of like everybody kind of forgot we're talking about human beings with wives and kids, and people just seem to have forgotten that. So anyhow, I'll go around here. Bryan, you talked a lot about NWA. What do you want people to know about where they can follow you and where they could follow the National Wrestling Alliance?
Sure. Well, you can follow the National Wrestling Alliance at nationalwrestlingalliance.com. Try spelling that. Good luck. Also, a shortcut, I believe, is if you do NWA TIX.com. No, I'm wrong. I lied. NWALiveEvents.com.
Okay.
So nationalwrestlingalliance.com, NWALiveEvents.com for all the NWA stuff and the links to our Roku channel and all that. Like I said, you can watch us on Roku every week now on Tuesday nights, channel 210, Roku Sports Channel. My stuff is all at the Bryan Idol, TheBryanIdol on social media, or you can go to BryanIdol.com, which is getting revamped. I'll have a new website up soon because it's terrible. Also, I would like to point out that I did debut 2 new shirts on the NWA merch site. So if you go to the National Wrestling Alliance and you click the site there, you can see my new T-shirts featuring me and the television title, which these days seems like glued to me because I take it everywhere I go. I got to tell you, I'm pretty proud of this title. I mean, we all know this title, right? We all understand what this is. So this is, from the eras of, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard and Terry Funk and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. All these guys had this belt, so it's pretty cool. Pretty honored to be able to say I'm the NWA television champion. Definitely when I came in the company was one of my goals. There's only 2 titles I wanted. I wanted 10 pounds of gold to the TV, and I got the TV, so that's pretty rad. But other than that, man, I'm around. You check my social media. I'm still doing a lot of indie shows, still traveling around. The next big NWA event, we have a taping in Tampa next week on the 5th at PBS, and then we're Samhain 3, the infamous Samhain 3, where apparently we lost a TV deal over cocaine, but that was not real. The real reality was NXT signed a deal with CW, and they were like, okay, bye. That's what really happened, but that's what the fans think is it was Jim Mitchell doing cocaine, which he's known to do. But so Samhain 3 will be in Atlanta on the October 17th, and that's our first time back in Atlanta in a long time since I think the COVID era. So that's pretty cool. And then yeah, man, from there, like I said, just doing my thing, wrestling around. Come to my wrestling school if anybody wants to wrestle. FTWWrestling.com. Oh, we got some house shows coming too. NWA's got some New York house shows coming up at the end of September, doing our little Sacred Heart fundraiser that we do at Sacred Heart in Queens. Was that Glendale?
Yeah.
And, we're doing another one out in, I believe, Huntington or Hicksville. One, I forget. That'll get announced tonight or tomorrow. But yeah, 2 little house shows. So for those of you that are in the area that missed the anniversary show at the Paramount, you get another chance to see me and a couple of the other guys. Not all of them, but a few of them. And so that'll be a fun time. And also Riot Fest. And see, now I can't shut up. I got a billion. We're going to Riot Fest in Chicago, which is a 3-day-long festival featuring Green Day, Weird Al, Blink-182.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. We did it last year. It was so awesome. And, they're thrilled to have us back. So we're thrilled to be there. Totally going to give us a bigger feature this year. So we're really pumped. That's September 19th through the 21st. So if you're in Chicago, you're coming to Riot Fest, we'll be there wrestling. That's about it, man.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad we're able to have you on. You're the right guy to have for this conversation. Thank you.
I hope so. I definitely didn't do myself any favors. I want to say, look, I'm going to stress it again, and by no means did anybody make it this far. If they already hated me, they're already, talking trash about me on Reddit. I take no joy or satisfaction or think it was any kind of good. It's nothing but unfortunate that things like that happen. And, sometimes, like I said, I'm laughing about the guy getting pinned because it's just absurd. And I'm saying, but my heart goes out to the dude. He made a mistake from the jump. He made a mistake. The other guy made a mistake. It's all just a bad vibe.
It's and that's the sad thing is that, and I think that thankfully, Stu looks like he's going to survive.
Yeah, he's going to survive.
What that means, I don't know if life's ever the same for him. Thankfully, makes it a little less bad than it could have been. And did he not happen? Did he not pull through? But yeah, I mean, I think again, you get back to what you're talking about here is human beings, and I think about the Jackson family, being dragged through court, and this is probably going to cost them millions or tens of dollars, and the Rikishi and Opal Black Pearl maybe potentially losing their wrestling school, and all those wrestlers who work there maybe losing a place to work. I mean, it's just bad all around, and I imagine a likelihood that a 25-year-old guy ends up in jail. First,
I don't think he will, honestly.
I don't think he will for a long time. People are like, attempted murder, he's going to do 50 years. I do think that's where it does get to be a little pearl clutching for me. And I'm like, the reality is this stuff's happening outside of
on a wrestling show in a sanctioned wrestling ring.
Yeah. And so it's terrible. I think he will face some justice for what happened. I don't expect what do they call him, Rampage Junior or whatever, Little Rampage to the electric chair for something like this.
No, my guess, honestly, I think he's going to get some kind of probationary programming. Definitely going to lose a civil suit, but I don't think.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think for the Jackson family, the real consequences are going to be financial because they have money, right? So you're not going after somebody without money. I mean, the reason this is a story is the reason that I think the consequences are going to be severe, and that is that his dad is a celebrity. With
you want to know what's wild? What's Rampage? So what's his name? Raj. What's Raj Jackson? What's his name?
His mother. Well, whose name?
What's her name?
His mother's name. I don't know.
Exactly. But, everybody. What do we keep calling this guy? Rampage Jackson's son.
That's it.
Yeah. Sucks to be Rampage Jackson right now.
Yeah. Jason, sorry, we got to get back on because the hope originally was to talk, a lot of things, sort of European wrestling, and it has been a big week and bigger coming this weekend with a Clash in Paris, which looks like a really fun card. We haven't really got a chance to preview it, but I'm looking forward to it. What do you got going on? Do you want people to know?
But just I would encourage everybody to go check out our website. Go to pwi-online.com. You can subscribe to the magazine there, either in print or in digital or both. We've got the PWI 500 coming up, so you want to be subscribed for that. You can also subscribe to the PWI Weekly newsletter, and you can check out the weekly ratings and things. There's lots of stuff happening on there to keep up with what's going on in the wrestling world, either in Europe or in America. But it seems like Europe is the heart of American wrestling at the moment. So
yeah. And you kind of the unsung hero of PWI. I know you do a lot of the heavy lifting over there, and we certainly appreciate it. Yeah, you got a lot of PWI 500 homework ahead of you.
I have got 60, my initial 60 done, and I foolishly or ambitiously volunteered.
It's like the teacher's pet. He's like the kid who tells the teacher, you forgot to give us homework today.
You do the heavy lifting. You do the fun part of it, so you do the heavy lifting.
That's Jason. And Brian, what do you got going on other than a hoarse voice from recording the audiobook?
A little bit of a hoarse voice. Yeah, my next book, Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. It's a month away, September 30th. It's almost here. And I've been recording the audiobook version, which obviously is going to take a little bit longer to get out there, probably later in the fall somewhere when they finish all the editing and everything. And I'm going to start doing publicity and interviews for the book very soon. By the end of the week, I should be appearing on a whole bunch of podcasts and things to talk about it. So they kind of, ECW Press wanted me to wait until it gets like close to when the book comes out to do that kind of stuff. So it's very exciting. September is going to be a really big month, and probably copies will start to trickle out. So people can pre-order it now wherever you get your books, Amazon or wherever else. You can definitely put in pre-orders already. A lot of people have.
I'm interested. Love Gorilla Monsoon, man.
Everybody loves Gorilla.
I mean, I love his ties even in Puerto Rico. People don't know, the ties that he had at WWC. I was also the WWC television champion at one point.
Got to bring it back to you.
I put it back on the map, man. But I'm saying, Gorilla, man, he was something special. Big part of my childhood, and I'm interested in that book.
Well, thank you. It's been nice to write a book about somebody that's actually loved by everybody. It's a unique
not a lot of those.
Right? There's not a lot. So
I'm not saying that about me.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll be back soon. Until then, head on over to pwi-online.com for all your PWI needs.